Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 273. I'm your host, Kim Newlove. I am a pharmacist by training, but I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. I specialize in medical narration and podcasting. You can find my business, my podcast, and the show notes for this episode on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. I have a 21-year-old son who was diagnosed with autism in the year 2005. He was 2.5 years old. He is currently nonverbal, and his diagnosis changed my life and my career path. So, we are talking about autism today. After I share some background information, I will dispense 10 lessons that I have learned from raising a child with autism. If you are new to this show, welcome. This is not my typical kind of episode. So, if this is the first episode you have ever listened to, please know that this is not my typical topic, not my typical energy, but this is me. This is me talking about something that is very personal. This is not the first episode that I have published about autism. Each April for the last 3 years, 2022, 2023, and now 2024, I have published an episode about autism. If you would like to listen to the other two, by the way, they are in the show notes for this episode, episode 273, on thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and then find episode 273. Why publish an episode about autism each April, you might be wondering? It's because there's a connection between the month of April and autism. Organizations like the Autism Society and Autism Speaks have called April Autism Awareness Month and Autism Acceptance Month over the years. And the United Nations is even on board. They declared April 2nd to be World Autism Awareness Day. Therefore, April is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month to me. I created this episode in the year 2024 for pharmacy professionals in America raising a child with autism because I am an American pharmacist raising a child with autism. You can read about stats and definitions online, but to find out how autism impacts a pharmacist mom or a family, you should be listening to people like me. Stats and definitions can't possibly tell the whole story. Now, if you stumble upon this episode and you are not a pharmacy professional raising a child with autism in America, thank you for tuning in. You will still get value from listening today. Each year, my Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episode just gives me an opportunity to share what life is like for me as a parent raising a child with autism. And you can certainly relate to that even if you are not a pharmacy professional. I wish someone would have shared their stories with me in 2005 when my son was first diagnosed with autism. I am paying it forward every April with this Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episode. As we get started, I want to acknowledge that background information is important. I am a pharmacist. I like data. I like evidence based everything. I care about where my information comes from, and you should too. So, what's my background? I am a pharmacist by training. I went to the University of Toledo College of Pharmacy and I graduated with my BS Pharm in 2001. But I am not in clinical practice anymore. My last clinical role ended in 2016. 2016. My role as a caregiver has heavily impacted my availability to work. My availability to work is not so great. I am a wife and a mom first and foremost. I try to tell people that all the time, but I also run the Pharmacist's Voice LLC part time, which means that I work part time from home as a voice actor and a podcast host. My specialties are medical narration and podcasting, and I love my job. Now, a little known fact about me is that I also became an independent provider through the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities in 2023. As I record this in April of 2024, that was 1 year ago. What is an independent provider for the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities? You might be wondering. All it is I went through some training and I became a paid caregiver on my son's care team. I have an NPI number and a Medicaid billing number. Any pharmacist in Ohio who hears that is probably thinking, well, hold on, that's what I have to do to become an independent provider as a pharmacist. All right, just for additional background information, in case I have perked your ears, the name of the program that I participate in is Ohio Shared Living. My NPI number and my Medicaid billing number are not related to my pharmacist credential. I don't bill as a pharmacist, I bill as a caregiver, and I only get paid for 5 hours of care per day, even though I often provide more than that. I hope that explanation helps. Even though I am making use of my talents, I struggle with how my son's disability affects me personally and professionally. The isolation of having to do what's right for my family instead of prioritizing my needs and my career weighs heavily on me at times. I struggle. If you struggle too, you are not alone. I see you. Let's move on to a brief description of my home life. I am married, and my husband and I have two adult sons. I am 45 years old. My husband is 48, about to turn 49. We're pushing 50, that's right. Our younger son, Derek, is 18, and he's in college at the University of Cincinnati, and he's studying engineering. Our older son, Craig, is 21 and has autism. Craig is in what's called a deferred graduation program at our local high school. What does that mean? It means that he is still in high school in spite of his age being 21. For my overseas listeners, high school in the United States usually ends around the age of 18. Craig, on the other hand, will finish high school next year in May of 2025 at the age of 22. My husband is 48, I am 45, and we've been together since 1993 and married since 2001. We're about to celebrate our 23rd wedding anniversary, but overall, we've been together for 31 years. 31 years. We live in Northwest Ohio, and our home is about 30 minutes from each of our parents. Our parents help us from time to time, but everybody's in their mid 70s. They're slowing down, and keeping up with a 21-year-old with autism has its challenges. That ends the background information. Now we're going to get into the 10 lessons that I've learned from raising a child with autism. These might sound like suggestions for you, and they are, but I'll share my experiences too. They are lessons because I lived them, and I think you should learn these lessons too. Lesson number one: create a vision for what you want your child's life to be like. Write it down and revisit it every year. Your vision for your child's future will guide the decisions that you make for your child until adulthood and then beyond. If you don't know how to write a vision statement, you can learn. We wrote our first vision statement back in 2006, and we did not know how to write one. Find resources and people that you trust and listen to them. That's what we did. Some of the people who helped us over the years were Craig's teachers, speech and occupational therapists, the County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and of course, other parents. Now, fast forward to the year 2024, where we are now, and we write our annual vision statement for Craig without help. We have come a long way. When Craig was in preschool, the vision statement looked a lot different than it does now. When he was in preschool, our vision for him included preparing him for a kindergarten classroom that included typical peers and an aide. He ended up in a classroom for kids with multiple disabilities and handicaps, that's otherwise known as an MDH classroom, but he got included with his peers for part of the day, like library, gym, music class, and so on. We had a vision, so when he got included, it fit our vision. You got to start somewhere. You can't just fast forward to adulthood. Every single year, it will change. Now that he's older and he's about to transition to adult services, our vision concentrates on that. Just get started. Don't worry about being perfect. Create a vision. That's the important thing. Creating a vision is important. It will guide your decisions. Lesson number two: mindset is important. Keep an open mind. From the moment you find out your child has autism, everything you do to or for your child should be for their benefit. Remember, there's often more than one way to get it right for your child. Try to get it right, don't try to be right. There is a difference. A perfect example is Craig's communication device. I have talked about this before. My son Craig is nonverbal and he uses a communication device. When he was 4 years old, 17 years ago, his speech therapist Beth told us that Craig needed to learn how to use a communication device so he could get his needs met. He needed to find a way to get his needs met in case he remained nonverbal. And that was tough for me to hear. I basically heard her tell me that your son may not talk someday. That was extremely difficult to hear. And in response, I basically told her, no thanks. And I practically demanded that she teach him how to speak with his mouth instead. Little did I know, autism does not work like that. In the end, I let go of how I wanted things to be, and I let Craig and his speech therapist move forward. Move forward with the communication device because it was right for Craig. I cared more about getting it right for Craig than I cared about being right about how he was supposed to communicate. I thought that the right thing was to hold out for verbal communication. I wanted to be right, damn it. I thought that the right way to do speech therapy was to somehow force Craig to talk by not offering alternatives. Again, autism does not work like that, I have learned, and I am almost ashamed to share my former belief. But if I don't share this, you can't learn a lesson from it, right? It speaks to my point. You have to have an open mind. Mindset is important. I had to grow as a person and expand my mind so that I got it right for Craig, even though I just wanted him to speak with his mouth. Fast forward 17 years, he's 21 and he still is nonverbal. Refusing the communication device would have silenced Craig and caused frustration. I made the right choice for him. Mindset's important. Keep an open mind. Grow as a person so you can get it right for your child. Let's move on to lesson number 3. Think ability first. Think about what your child can do instead of focusing on what they can't. Craig learned how to ride a two-wheeled bicycle when he was 8 years old. I remember this with pride. A lot of people with autism never learn how to ride a two-wheeled bike, and we didn't want that for Craig. Bikes have always been a big part of my life, even now. I ride bicycles and I even ride motorcycles. And I wanted Craig to be able to ride a bicycle too. Craig started riding tricycles when he was a toddler, and man, he was good at it. And then he progressed to a two-wheeled bike with training wheels, and he was good at that too, so I knew he was moving in the right direction. But by the time he was 8, he hadn't lost the training wheels yet. Losing the training wheels was hard for Craig. The local bike shop owner in our neighborhood, back in Toledo, Ohio, her name is Jill Wurzel. She told us about a summer camp, and it was called Lose the Training Wheels. It was a 1 week summer camp in the neighboring community of Sylvania, and it was going to change Craig's life. It is how he learned how to ride a two-wheeled bike. Now, if you are a parent of a child with autism and you're Googling this right now, the program has been renamed I Can Shine. That's ICAN, all is one word, I Can Shine. Now, over the course of a week, Craig lost his training wheels and forevermore became a two-wheeled bike rider because he learned how to ride a bike using increasingly wobbly training wheels. They just kept putting on more and more wobbly training wheels until he was able to ride without them. This story totally has a happy ending. Just like Craig and the Lose the Training Wheels camp, always look for a way to adapt. Think ability first. As a little epilogue to that story, a happy little epilogue, we made a photo book of Craig's time at the Lose the Training Wheels summer camp, and we gave a copy of it to Jill at the bike shop, with a thank you note, of course. She loved it, and she was able to then show other people, other families with a kid with special needs, that the summer camp really works. Sometimes you can give the gift of going second to somebody so they can help other people. When people see that it worked for one person, they just have this vision that their child can do it too. If you have a kiddo on the autism spectrum, keep I Can Shine in mind. I love that story, but we need to move on to lesson number 4. Lesson number 4: embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you have a child with autism, you have entered the DEI space. People with autism are neurodiverse and they want to be treated equally and included in the same opportunities that everyone else has. For example, Craig likes going to restaurants. Max and Irma's used to be his favorite here in Perrysburg, Ohio, but they closed. Craig also likes going to church, grocery stores, and the swimming pool. We include him in activities that help him enjoy life. Autism is not Craig's identity, it's just part of who he is. So we help him feel seen, heard, respected, and understood, and we help him live a full life. When it comes to inclusion, people with autism sometimes struggle to find their place in this world. As a parent, I enjoy inspirational stories of diverse people who found their place in the world. So, with that in mind, I want to recommend 2 books to you. One is about a man on the autism spectrum, he has Asperger's, and the other is about an Olympic athlete. First up, let me tell you about Look Me in the Eye: My Life with Asperger's by John Elder Robinson. John Elder Robinson. This book is about a man who was diagnosed with Asperger's as an adult. I think he was about 40. And that was after he did some pretty amazing things, like touring with the rock band Kiss. He developed some exploding guitars for them. If you've never seen the rock group Kiss, they're quite a sight. I love them. All right, now the second book, which Craig and I are reading right now, is Proud: Living My American Dream by Ibtihaj Muhammad. She won a medal, I believe it was the bronze medal, for women's fencing at the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio. Fencing, what a sport. The book cover has an impressive picture of her with her sword. I believe it's called a saber sword. What is different about her? She doesn't have autism. Ibtihaj Muhammad is a black Muslim American and she wears a hijab. A hijab is a head covering. She talks about the sport of fencing having few black faces in general and even fewer hijab wearing Muslim American women. It is a great book. We feel inspired by her accomplishments and we appreciate her sharing her struggles. She knows what it's like to be seen as different. We can relate. Read books that inspire you and help your child find their place in this world too. Let's move on to lesson number 5. Don't underestimate the ordinary. Ordinary things done consistently produce extraordinary results. Your vision for your child's future is important, and the little things are the big things in the long run. We have patiently taught Craig how to put his clothes away in drawers and on hangers, for example, and over the years, the school has helped us too. It took time, but Craig is much more independent right now at putting his own clothes away than he ever has been. Learning routines leads to acquiring new skills. Isn't that how it works in school too? I mean, you learn how to learn. Don't underestimate the ordinary. Those skills add up. Lesson number 6: the gifts of autism. I love this lesson. Raising a child with autism has given me several gifts. I did not expect this, so I call them the gifts of autism. I'll only mention 4 because there are too many to count. I'm sure you can imagine. The 4 that made my list today are grit, time with family, pictures, and a sincere appreciation for using my own voice. The gift of autism that I appreciate most is grit. Grit, grit. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines grit as unyielding courage in the face of hardship or danger. I have been knocked down and had to get up again a lot, kind of like that Chumbawamba song. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. It's a great song. I just keep my vision for Craig in mind and I try to focus on moving forward instead of getting stuck at obstacles and speed bumps. My least favorite speed bump ever was the pandemic. Craig was sent home from school in March of 2020 with no school alternative. I became his teacher, and he didn't want me. He wanted the big yellow school bus to take him to school. He loves the bus, he loves school, he loves his teacher, his aides, and I think he enjoys his peers too. But back during the pandemic, he was home and he didn't want to wear a mask to go out. It was probably a solid year before we were able to take him to restaurants to eat. It was a tough time for him. It was a tough time for us all. But you would be amazed at how far you can get by just kicking the can down the road in spite of hardships. Be gritty, my friend. Things like the pandemic pass. Just stay the course and be gritty. If you need more information about grit and inspiration to stay your course during tough times, check out the book Grit: The Power of Passion and Perseverance by Angela Duckworth. Great book. The second gift of autism is being a stay at home parent for 2 decades. Staying at home is not what I wanted to do with my career, but I can't put a price on time with family. I spent a lot of time with my husband and both kids instead of working in pharmacies over the years because of Craig. If I had had two neurotypical kids, they likely would have been in daycare so I could work. That's how most people do it. Yes, I worked part time for many years too, but I was home with my husband and kids more than I was at the pharmacy. Since working conditions and job satisfaction in the pharmacy profession have declined severely, especially in the most recent years, staying at home has been one of the gifts of autism for me. The third gift of autism on my list is communicating in pictures. Now, as neurotypical adults, this would be a presentation like a PowerPoint. But for my son, sometimes I communicate with Craig by showing him pictures, and I'm good at it. This is kind of like a scaled down version of a PowerPoint presentation. A picture says 1,000 words, and pictures just work for Craig. The downside, on the other hand, is that when I do create some sort of a presentation, a visual presentation like a Canva presentation or a PowerPoint, I tend to oversimplify things visually with neurotypical adults. So if you've ever been in a presentation with me, I tend to overdo it with pictures. But the pictures themselves are a gift. I have thousands of pictures of people, places, and things over the years because I have used them to communicate with Craig. Pictures and communicating in pictures is one of the gifts of autism for me. The fourth and final gift of autism for me is a sincere appreciation for using my own voice. Craig struggles with communication. We've been over that. He is nonverbal. It is painful watching him struggle. But watching Craig struggle also taught me to appreciate my own voice. There is power in having a voice and using it. Because of my voice, I am a powerful advocate for Craig. I also read him books to entertain him, and I've also used it for my business. I host podcasts, I narrate audiobooks, I provide medical narration, and I moderate continuing education events for doctors at medical conferences. I appreciate and use my voice. Can you tell I'm a little bit proud of that one? I love the gifts of autism. Number 7, take care of yourself. Self care is important. Sleep, get daily exercise. Don't take on too much. Eat right and stay connected to other people. Getting your needs met in general is important. It is easy to help other people first and then get burned out. Been there, done that. At this point in my life, I'm 45. I try to take care of myself so I can take care of my family. You should take care of yourself too. Let's move on to number 8. Lesson number 8. Embrace disruptions. Don't underestimate the power of disruptions. For example, a therapy dog named Bond disrupted Craig's life, but he also helped Craig. When Craig was 8 years old, our family adopted a therapy dog named Bond. At the time Bond the therapy dog came into our lives, Craig struggled to walk from the house to the school bus without running away. Sometimes he would run to a swing that was hanging from a tree or go somewhere else. The bus driver could not see where he went, and that was the unsafe part. When Bond started walking Craig to the bus, however, some magic happened. Craig went straight from our house to the bus with Bond. Bond did a lot of other things for Craig. Bond motivated Craig in a way that I, as a parent, could not. We couldn't get Craig to scoop dog food for our other dog, Chewy, but once Bond came along, Craig could scoop like a champ. And Craig had a hard time sitting among his classmates, his typical classmates, for story time. You bring in a dog, and suddenly he's sitting with his classmates. And he was more interesting to his classmates because he was the one holding the leash. Disruption can be a good thing. Don't underestimate the power of disruption. Change can be good. New dog, new school, new teacher, new classmates, new house, new situations. Embrace disruptions. We're almost done with my list, I promise, just two more. Here's lesson number 9. Be a leader. You have to be on top of what your child needs. No one will do it for you. There is no such thing as set it and forget it in the autism world. Your vision for your child's future is very important. Be a leader and help your child achieve their full potential. I am Craig's mom, but I'm also his primary caregiver, his guardian, and so much more. I am a leader, and you need to be a leader too. And now we've come to the last lesson, lesson number 10. This lesson was inspired by Star Wars Episode 8. The lesson is Save What You Love. In Star Wars Episode 8, a character named Rose delivered a line that I absolutely love. She said, "That's how we're gonna win. Not by fighting what we hate, but by saving what we love." When raising a child on the autism spectrum, you must come from a place of love. Get to know your child. Enjoy life. Love them unconditionally. Learn your own lessons and help your child achieve their full potential. That's how you're going to win. Save what you love. Now let's review my 10 lessons. Number 1, create a vision for your child's future. Number 2, keep an open mind. Number 3, think ability first. Number 4, embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. Number 5, don't underestimate the ordinary. Number 6, discover your gifts of autism. Number 7, take care of yourself. Number 8, embrace disruption. Number 9, be a leader. And number 10, save what you love. As I start to wrap this episode up, I will say that the 10 lessons I listed in this episode are good ones, of course, but I have learned so much more than just 10 lessons. 10 lessons are a good start, and I hope that this episode has helped you. If you don't have a child on the autism spectrum, but you know someone who does, please share this episode with them. It is important to me to share my stories and pay forward what I have learned. It would be a shame not to share all of this if you need to hear it. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacist Voice Podcast, episode 273. To find the show notes for this episode, go to thepharmacistvoice.com, click on the podcast tab, and find episode 273. In the show notes, you'll find links to my 2022 and 2023 Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month episodes, a link to the Autism Society, Autism Speaks, the books that I mentioned, Ibtihaj Muhammad's book, Proud, Living My American Dream, Grit by Angela Duckworth, the Chumbawamba song, I Get Knocked Down, just for fun, my social media links, my websites, and more. So many links today. It's all on thepharmacistvoice.com. Remember to share this episode if you know someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks for listening today. I'll talk to you next week.